Shawn Drover, hey, it's Rustin Rose with Metal Nation and Access.
Hey.
How is everything in your world, my friend?
Really good, man. You know what? It's funny because when you record a new record, we finished recording Old Scars, New Wounds, God, probably 3 months ago now. And, once you turn it into the record company and all the artwork and all the things that go along with it, the band just kind of sits back and waits, you know what I mean? Because it has to be manufactured, you have to make videos and do all this stuff for the September 29th release of our new record. And it's, what I'd like to do, of course, is immediately go on tour and go play shows and get in people's faces and play new music, but you can't do that until the new record's out. So we're kind of, the band's kind of in a holding pattern. And for me, personally, I would just rather be on the road, doing what I can to promote the record, but you can't promote a record that's not released yet. So it's mildly aggravating just to kind of sit around on your ass and just wait and wait and wait. But it's good. It's all good. I mean, the record turned out very well, and we're really, really pleased with it. And we just can't wait. Really, we just can't wait for everybody to hear the record. That's basically what it comes down to.
Well, it's a fantastic record. But I mean, I guess on the bright side, it gives you more time to be out on the golf course, right?
And that's exactly right. Yeah, I played yesterday, so yeah. I mean, it's there's plenty of time for me to play golf, and I play as much as I can when I'm off the road. So that's it's a nice compensation, for that. Instead of being on the road, I'm on the golf course. So life doesn't suck. You know what I mean?
It sort of begs the question: do you get more in your Zen space when you're behind the kit or when you're on the golf course?
Probably on the drum kit, because golf is such an aggravating sport potentially. I mean, it's a game you'll never master. And it's, I've been playing for over 40 years now, and it's just, I love the game so much, but it's so friggin' aggravating when you're not playing. If you don't play well, or, it's a constant battle, man against the course, and the course often wins. So it's, but I mean, I love it. It's, my passion outside the music and my family. That's what I love the most, is to play golf. And, I wouldn't say I'm ever in a Zen state when I'm playing golf at all. I try to concentrate and focus, but you hit a bad shot and that Zen goes away real quick, and anger replaces the Zen. You know what I mean? I'm certainly much more focused on stage or in the studio playing with the band, certainly.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the music. Old Scars, New Wounds, as you mentioned, comes out September 29th. It's clearly a progression from the debut. You guys were a lot more collaborative as a band on the new record. Tell us about the new album from your perspective and what Henry and Matt added to the songwriting this time around.
Well, the main difference in songwriting is with Birth and the Burial. When that record was written, it was just myself and Chris.
Right.
There was no band at the time. We were juggling so many hats at that time. It was, okay, let's write a record, let's get a band, let's get a record label, let's get a manager, let's get a booking agent. All these things Chris and I were doing on our own, but primarily we had to write a record. And so when we did get band members, whoever they were, we didn't even know at the time, that we were going to get Matt, we were going to get Henry. The search was on as we were writing music. So by the time Henry and Matt came into the fold, the music was already written. Henry contributed a lot of the lyrics because he got there before Matt did, and he was able to contribute lyrically and certainly, of course, with vocal melodies. Matt came in literally like the record was like, about to be recorded. It's like, oh, okay, dude, here's the record, bass tracks start as soon as we're done with drum tracks and guitar tracks. So, I mean, he just jumped right in head first, and of course he did a fantastic job. Of course, with this new record, we played about 110 shows in support of Birth and the Burial, and got, a year under our belt of getting acclimated to each other and seeing what our mannerisms were with music and so forth. And, when it came time to do this new record, we had the affordability of a little more time this time around. And, of course, Matt being such a great songwriter with Shadows Fall and all that stuff, that was, of course, a no-brainer. He wrote 3 songs on the record, and Henry actually wrote a song on the record as well, which is going to be our second single, a song called Overexposure. So, he stepped up to the plate musically as well as contributing a lot of lyrics and vocal melodies to this new record. So, like I said, the main difference was we had a little more time, and we had all 4 band members contributing this time, which was a very welcome change.
You've been doing this for a while, obviously. Do you find it easier to create and collaborate in this modern era of technology where you're sending stuff back and forth? Or do you still prefer that get in the rehearsal studio and work out ideas that way sort of thing?
Honestly, I've been doing it this way, you know, in terms of, you know, sending files back and forth, or back when I was in my old band Eidolon, which was signed to Metal Blade Records as well. We did 4 records with that label. That was back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it was still me just sending music to my brother. Back then, it wasn't through internet files; it was just through old school tapes. I mean, I would literally send him, record all the songs on tape, send it to my brother. He would learn it, and I would fly up there to his studio and record drums for, you know, whatever record we were doing at the time. What we're doing now with Act of Defiance is just the modern version of that. You know what I mean? Now, you know, we can do stuff on Pro Tools and just send files over the internet, which is extremely easy. So I really have never really had that experience a whole lot to everybody jam in a room and let's create new songs and all that. It really never kind of worked out that way for me. By and large, it was the other way, like, you know,
right,
just that collaboration through file sharing on the internet and stuff. And of course, certainly to me, I mean, obviously it's an easier way for people to communicate who don't live in the same town. I mean, we're kind of spread all over the United States, you know. Henry and Chris are in LA, Matt's just outside of Boston, and I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. So it's, you know, certainly with the advent of Pro Tools and all that stuff, it's certainly made our lives a lot easier and enabled us to be a band that's lived in different parts of the country.
So what was the biggest challenge or the most challenging part of making Old Scars, New Wounds?
I don't think we had anything that was challenging, to be honest. I think this record was a little more seamless than the first record because like I said, you know, Chris and I had so many things and so many hats that we were wearing to get that record done. I look back now in retrospect, and I don't know how we did it. I mean, we were able to do all those things in a matter of less than 5 months and turn a finished record into the record company. I mean, and assemble, like, you know, all the things I stated previously with what we had to do to assemble the band and get all the pieces of the puzzle together. I really don't know how we did it. We just sheer determination. So that in itself was a challenge, and we didn't have any of that with this new record at all. I mean, you know, like I said, you know, we've been a band now for well over 2 years. You know, again, we had a set plan. Okay, we're going to start writing music at this time. We're going to start recording at this time. You know what I mean? We had more of a game plan, and we had more of a heads up to what we were doing in advance. So we really didn't have any snags at all on this record. It was quite the seamless record, and certainly from my perspective, you know, I recorded drum tracks for the first time in my career, where, you know, in Atlanta, Georgia, where I live. I mean, it's always been, you know, I recorded Birth and Burial in Connecticut. I recorded, you know, the Megadeth records in California and England. I recorded the Eidolon records in Canada. I was always traveling to perform drum tracks. And this time, you know, I made the decision, like, look, there's some great studios here in Atlanta. You know, we're already going to be recording in different areas. Why don't I just record at home in, you know, the hometown where I live? And that's what I did. So my experience, certainly from a personal perspective, was fantastic on this record.
How do you approach writing the drum parts for each song? Are you more of a field drummer, or do you sort of blueprint everything out when you're going in the studio?
Well, I mean, primarily I'm a songwriter. I mean, I wrote for the songs that I wrote on this record and Birth and Burial. You know, I wrote all the guitars for. So I already knew in my head, you know, how the drum beat was going to go because I was writing, you know, guitar for it. When other band members do it, when, you know, for instance, when Chris does his stuff, he'll put, you know, a drum machine to what he's doing. So I get a reference point right there of what he's kind of thinking of stylistically for drums. And of course, I, you know, twist and turn it and make it my own. But the core beat that he's got on there, I usually keep the same because he really hasn't done anything that I thought was wrong yet. You know what I mean? I thought he was right on the money in terms of, you know, the core drum beat for the songs that he had written. So same for Matt with this record. Matt did the same thing, you know, and he had a couple of questions for me, you know, hey, you know, what do you think about this? Or, you know, in terms of, you know, drum beats and stuff. And he played me something. I said, yeah, that's right on the money. So it was, you know, and certainly if any of the other guys put on something in terms of a drum machine that I thought was completely wrong or inappropriate, I would certainly say something about it. But by and large, I would kind of replicate the core drum beat that they put on the demos for their songs and just kind of make it my own.
And now you guys worked with Zeus on the last album. You worked with Dave Otero on the new record. What did he sort of bring to the Act of Defiance sound?
I mean, really, the main reason why we got Dave Otero was because Zeus wasn't available. He was going to work with Iced Earth and then jump right into Queensryche. So when we had the initial conversations, it was between myself and Zeus. He wasn't even sure if he could do it. So right off the bat, I knew I had to go with a plan B. And Chris had heard about Dave Otero. He did some mixes for Cattle Decapitation and some other bands. Allegiant was another one. And so I went and listened to the stuff, and I thought it sounded sonically really great. And so we started a dialogue with Dave, and he was interested in working with us. And I think the results speak for that. I mean, that's a really huge, fat production, and I think it sounds fantastic. I mean, I think the same, of course, with what Zeus did with Birth and Burial. It's the production value is slightly different. You know, every individual producer, like a musician, has kind of puts his own flair on it, and I'm glad it sounds a little bit different. For me, I don't want everything to sound exactly the same every record that you do. You know what I mean? You know, the stuff, what I grew up with, you know what I mean, back in the 70s, it never sounded exactly the same, you know, and I'm glad it kind of sounds a little bit different, not a whole lot different, but, there are a couple of things that are a little bit different from what Zeus did to what Dave did, and I love them both.
I've heard Chris talk about a few of the tracks on the album already, but a couple of my favorite tracks I'd like to ask you about. One of them is Conspiracy of the Gods, which is, I think, where you pulled the album title from. Tell us a bit about that track.
Yes. Well, that's a song that I wrote. Again, Henry wrote the lyrics for it, and I wrote the music for it. It was just something that I wrote that I wanted it to be something that had a couple of different tempo changes in it. And, it kind of, halfway through the song, it kind of, kicks up a couple of notches in terms of speed and stuff, and goes and has a couple of different musical directions to it, which I'm really happy with the way that song turned out. I'm happy with the way they all turned out, to be honest. But that one, I think that was probably the second song that I had written for the new record. Actually, you know what? I wrote some of the lyrics for that song as well. I think Henry and I collaborated on that one in terms of lyrics. I think I wrote a lot of the lyrics at the end of the song, and he wrote some of the stuff towards the beginning and middle of the song. So that was a collaborative effort lyrically, and as well, I actually lent a couple of ideas for vocal melodies on my part of the song that I wrote lyrics to. So it was a real collaborative effort, and certainly from me and Henry for lyrics and vocal melodies, and I wrote the music for it. I just think it's a straight up metal tune, and I like the riffage in it. I like the way it turned out, so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and another one of my favorites was Circle of Ashes. Henry uses multiple aspects of his voice there, which I really enjoyed. Tell us a little bit about that one. Again,
yeah, like you suggest, one thing I really like about Henry is that he's not a one-dimensional singer. He can scream his head off with the best of them and do all the real brutal vocals. And it also has different styles melodically as well. He just doesn't have like one kind of melodic singing style. He's got like a raspy kind of melodic singing style. He's got a real clean melodic singing style, and I love all of it. Again, that's one of the reasons why we ultimately wanted to work with Henry initially, was when he sent in, he sang in a couple of demo tracks for Birth and Burial, and we just said, go to town and sing however you want to sing, and we'll just kind of take a look at it. And again, he did a lot of different kind of interesting things. Instead of just screaming his head off or just singing melodically, his palette was really quite wide, you know what I mean, in terms of vocal styles, and that's what initially drew me to wanting to work with him. And again, Circle of Ashes is just a good example of that, you know what I mean? Certainly, Henry and I have never had any kind of premeditated approach as to how he should sing this or that. He kind of has a really good gauge on what vocal approach he should use depending on that part of any given song. And I think he's done a really good job, with that, and not being pigeonholed to only singing one way. He really has 6, 7, 8 different kind of voices, and I think he utilizes them a little more on this new record, which I'm really happy about.
How long does it usually take after you've recorded and released an album before you can look back at it objectively?
I don't know. I don't really, my viewpoint really hasn't changed on Birth and Burial. 2 years later. I mean, the record literally came out August 21st, so it's just been over 2 years. 2015 it came out, and I like it now as much as I did then. I don't look back and go, oh my God, I wish we would have changed that, or I wish, I did this, or we didn't do that. I really think it's a great debut record. Again, it's a great way for the band to start. You know what I mean? Will it be the best record we ever made in our career? I don't think so. I think the new record is better than that. I don't think it's 100 times better than the first record. So many bands go, this is the best thing we've ever done. This is the best thing we've ever done. Whether they're genuine with that statement, I really don't know. But I mean, for me, you know, our two records are different from each other. You know what I mean? And it's always a subjective thing anyway. You know what I mean? You can say, well, Birth and the Burial is 10 times better. And I'll say, no way, dude. The new record's better. And there's really no, you know what I mean? It's a subjective conversation. It's not a factual conversation. You know what I mean? Everybody's open to their opinions on what they think is good or bad or what have you. So, you know, at the end of the day, I'm really proud of both records, and I think they're both very solid records. And the future looks bright in terms of us creating more music that's going to be really, really good music. You know what I mean? Instead of making one good record and then the second one sucks. I think both of our records are very solid, and that's what pleases me the most.
I absolutely agree. And that's sort of why I asked that question, because, you know, when you first put out an album, it's your new child, you want to think it's your best stuff because you're enamored of it in the moment. And then a year or so later after touring on it, you have a chance to really step back. And I just always wonder how long it takes for some people to look back and go, yeah, I might have wanted to do this bit. But it's thrilling that you like the first album as much as you did when it first came out. That says a lot about what you put into it. So,
as well, too, you know, you got to remember something. I've been doing this. You know, like I said, Chris and I wrote the music for the record. We've been doing this for so long that, you know, we didn't write those songs in a week. It was written over the course of, you know, a couple of months. Chris had some ideas that he had in his vault. Most of my stuff was all new riffs. I had a couple of ideas that I had laying around on that I had recorded, but by and large, it was all new material. I just, you know, I've been doing this crap for so long now that I know, for me, I know if something that I write is good or not good enough. For me personally, like, I have to like it before I can present it to Chris or the band or whatever. You know what I mean? Now, whether somebody else down the road they like it or they don't like it, for me, it doesn't matter one way or the other. Obviously, you hope that your fans like it and you build a fan base. But if somebody doesn't like it for musical reasons, I have no issue with that. You know what I mean? All you can do at the end of the day is write the best music you can and something you believe in, and hope that others will like it as well. But at this point of the game, you know, the songs that I had written for Birth and the Burial, I knew they were good. You know what I mean? For what I can do, you know what I mean? And just writing solid heavy metal songs. You know, I'm proud of what I did, and I'm proud of what Chris did with Birth and the Burial with his songs as well.
All right, I appreciate it. Shawn Drover, Act of Defiance, the new album, Old Scars, New Wounds, September 29th. Thanks so much for taking some time to chat, and we look forward to seeing you on the road.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much.